Three, two, one, here we go. Hello and welcome to the Gonzo Experience Podcast. I am David Gonzo Mamano here with another great episode. A lot of energy coming up on this podcast episode. A lot of great learning in this interview as well. Today I have on the show a newer friend, and she's going to really knock your socks off with her journey so far on what she's doing. Gina Paolini. Gina, welcome to the Gonzo Experience.
Thank you, David. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited that we're finally doing this after trying to get it on the calendar for such a long time.
I know. Well, we're both so popular, but I'm glad we're able to do it. So we are here. We're recording this in late January, and I'm in Rochester, New York. It is snowing like crazy. You are from New York, or you live in New York City, but you were smart enough to go to South Florida for the winter. So you're in like gorgeous, beautiful palm tree environment, hot weather right now. I'm very jealous.
Yeah, it's pretty nice to be escaping the weather that we're having in New York. So I'm pretty grateful to be here.
Very smart. You're too young to be a snowbird, but you can do a little bit of that, right? So
exactly.
So Gonzo family, I want to tell you a little bit more about Gina, and she's really got a great story, a great journey, and then specifically about how she's helping entrepreneurs today. I was on her podcast. She did a great job, and now it's her turn to be on mine. But a little bit more about Gina, then we're going to get into some great questions. So Gina Paolini, she is a business growth specialist, and she's the founder and CEO of the Gina Paolini Group. It's a consultancy that specializes in working with entrepreneurs and leaders of small to mid-sized growth companies to develop the mindset, strategies, and practical tools to achieve exponential growth in their business and their lives. Gina is also the creator of the Untethered Entrepreneur, which is a community of innovators, entrepreneurs, and conscious leaders who seek to break free from old paradigms and create purpose-driven, people-centric businesses where profit is not the driver, but rather the result of inspired action around a shared vision. That is awesome. I agree with you completely. I think it's very cutting edge. Before we started recording, we were talking about how we both feel that the old way, the command and control strategy of running businesses is very, very old school. And it's, going forward, it's just what works is very different. What works to engage people to be their best, and therefore your company, is very different. And it seems like that is what you're focusing on. So we're going to talk about that. But first, I want to hear about your journey in business and how you became the Untethered Entrepreneur, and how you're helping people today. So tell us, tell us how this whole journey all started.
Sure. So I started my career off in sales, and advanced into sales leadership. In my early career, I ran membership sales, all membership sales for Equinox fitness clubs. At the time where the founding family had sold it to the two private equity firms that acquired it. I had P&L responsibility in my early 30s for about $100 million, and a group of about 100 on my sales team. And I really kind of feel like I grew up under a very, like we talked about, a little bit of an authoritarian, male-dominated mentality of, really just driving growth at really not any cost, but I wouldn't say, but that was the primary objective. And so I was with Equinox, and then I wound up leaving Equinox, and unfortunately I lost both of my parents within the first year of my marriage, very early. And my dad had a business, which I took over and I ran for a number of years, and I sort of turned that around. And then I decided I wanted to sell it and completely do something different. And like I said, I had just gotten married, and it was the first time in my life I didn't have to really 100% worry about, putting food on the table or paying the mortgage. We were in a partnership. I had just sold the business, and I decided I wanted to do something completely different. And I wound up helping to develop a charity that does work in northern Malawi. We built the first internationally accredited school there, secondary school. We built an orphan feeding center, and that was really just one of the highlights of my life, to be able to take my business skills and my business building skills and use it to do something, really, really good to give back, which was amazing. And I did that. I was, I'm still involved today, but I was active as the really sort of co-founder of US operations and leading the development efforts. And then I wound up getting back into the business world, and I was consulting for a travel company. I wound up joining as president and helped the founder to really grow it and take it to the next level. And what I decided and what I got out of that experience was, I really felt like I would love to help a number of entrepreneurs. So that's when I really kind of founded the Gina Paolini Group, and really want to work with purpose-driven leaders to help grow their businesses, because invariably what I have seen happens is, people get to a certain level and then they get stuck, and that's where the untetheredness comes in, right? So it's, how can we untether ourselves to do the very best work that we can, and to develop those mindsets and the strategies that when you do get stuck or you do plateau, to really allow you to untether yourself and take yourself to the next level in your business and in your life.
So how did you think of that, untethered entrepreneur? I mean, that's kind of a very unique term.
Yeah, so I'm a big reader, and one of my favorite books in the world is The Untethered Soul by Mickey Singer. And the whole concept of the untethered entrepreneur, the central thesis is really that the concept of surrender in every moment. And it took you and I 14.6 billion years to get to this moment in time. So it's perfect, right? We're not meant to be anywhere else. So, you find yourself sitting in the car behind somebody and they're going too slow in the car or whatever else. And it's, our minds, right, and our thoughts take us places that it's really not reality. It's your perception, right? So the untethered entrepreneur and the untethered comes from the untethered soul, which is this concept of surrendering in every moment. And you're just you're looking, and you're not your thoughts and you're not your feelings, but you're the observer of your thoughts and your feelings. And when you treat things like that, it enables you to, sorry if you hear a little car in the background.
No problem. We know you're outside in Florida. We understand. So.
But it's so if you allow yourself, if you can train yourself, right, that when these thoughts come up, that just to let it go, because it's not real, right? And that's really hard to do when you're in the moment. But if you can develop those strategies, when a moment hits, then you want to use your tools, then you've got them.
So you're talking about basically kind of recognizing that the fear is not real.
Correct. The fears, the limiting beliefs, and it's just a challenge, right, that you have to face in that moment. And instead of going into panic mode or whatever, it's like, okay, what's true about this situation? Because I don't know, I think so many of us make up these stories in our head, right, of what it really means. So in every situation, what I do is encourage, my clients, it's like, okay, let's find out what's true about this. Yeah, the client may have left, right? You could lose your biggest client, but what's true about that situation? Are they gone forever? Is it just a hiatus? What do you need to do to replace that business? So instead of going into panic mode, it's like, you accept what happens, right? And you surrender to the moment. And then you come out of it, and you, from a calm, conscious place, create the plan to, figure out and figure out what to do next.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because it is, it's so much perception and often, the wrong perception. Like, I know teachers that they're in front of a class every day teaching, speaking, really public speaking, right? But when they're asked to give a speech, in front of people, maybe it's an event or whatever, they freak out, and I've been like, you do this every day. What's the difference? Right. And it's just a change in mindset of I'm not
right.
speaking to students. I'm speaking to, my colleagues, and I'm like, but you're still doing the same thing. It's just, different people, I don't know. It is funny. It at the end of the day, I've learned, throughout the years that so much of it is mental, and how you kind of, frame the situation in your mind or not. Right.
It's everything. It's that you hit the nail on the head. It's absolutely everything. And it's, what we're thinking, again, is it real? Right. So you have to check that. And it's true. It's like that. That's a great example about the teachers. They're public speaking every single day.
Yeah.
It's just different for them.
Yeah.
So
I want to get more about, what we're talking about before with how the business world has changed, right? I mean, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s to some extent. It was, command and control, right? There's a boss, you show up, 8 to 5, you do what's told, and you don't question too much, and you go home. And that started to change in the 80s, I think, and more in the 90s. And today I think COVID has put it even more front and center because people, they want what they want, right? So we have to learn on how to engage them so we can give them what they want, yet they're so productive for the company. So can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts about that and how you're working with CEOs and entrepreneurs so that they can adjust to this new world, which, if done correctly, it's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. And it's interesting because how different generationally we think, right? So from, Gen Z to boomers, the way that I grew up was like you had stability, right? And you didn't want to job hop. So to show employers that you were stable. And it was funny when I was at the travel company, one of the little millennials said, we were looking at somebody's resume to hire. And I said, well, they've jumped around a bit. And she said, not for anything, Gina. She said, but that's what people our age do. Like we're free to experience, people don't think that way anymore. It's like, it's more about getting the right experiences. Right. And that doesn't, when I say the right experiences, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a linear path, right? Like I didn't even have a linear path. It's like I stepped into the business world, stepped out, did different things because it's about having this integrated life, right? And so, in my work with entrepreneurs, it's really working with them to get to understand, they need to know their people and they need to know, what makes them tick. And to me, it's about how can, as a sales leader, my sales team, they were so important because they were the ones out on the front lines doing the work. So my role was how can I support you to do the best work possible? So I think it's changing that mindset. It's like, what do I want versus how can, look at somebody first as a person? Because as I mentioned before, it's like people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, that old adage, but it's really true. So I think it's looking at your employees as not a cog in the wheel, right? Or somebody to get something done. But if you invest in them and you care about their whole life, right, they're going to kill for you. They're going to be loyal to you. Yeah. But you have to show that first, and I feel like that's something that I've instilled in people that I've worked with because they always have known how much I care. So I think that's a big portion of it. And then I think it's not just caring, it's also helping people. There's a reason why your business is in business. What is it there to do? Is it just to feed your family, or are you there for a greater purpose? And I think that, getting people to look at their businesses in that way, it's like, we're here to serve. So to me, it's like, who am I here to serve? Who am I here to help? And, if I get I'm not so active on social media, but when I get a DM and says like, what, you're really inspiring me, or I felt like you spoke to me today, that to me is just the greatest feeling and the greatest recognition that I could get because, we're here to help people. And I think if leaders can understand that, who are we here to serve? It's our clients, obviously, but you're also here to, your workplace, right? That's like a second family. It's your work family. So investing in people, investing in, their lives and what they care about, you're going to reap the rewards ultimately.
I love what you just said. And probably what I love about it the most is it's not that difficult, right? I mean, we're not asking people to do like these crazy strategic, shifts. Someone telling you that, it was one sentence, right? Maybe two sentences about, hey, that was great. You really impacted me. Boom. What was it? 3 seconds, 2 sentences, and I just made your day, right? And
Right.
you know, I remember in the 80s, maybe it was the 90s, there was that little coffee table book called Life's Little Instruction Booklet. And
Hmm.
there was 100 things that you can do to have a better life. And number one was remember that a person's greatest need is to feel appreciated. It was number one, right? And a lot of times you don't need a big, bonus check or promotion to feel appreciated. Often you just need a little, like, proverbial pat on the back, like, "Hey, John, I saw what you did, and it was really good. I could tell that you put a lot of effort into it, and great job." That, like, would probably make John's month, if not year, right? Like, and endear him to your company even more.
Right. And people think it's money, but I think it's like in 65% of cases, it's not, money is not the driver. It's recognition and it's appreciation, and also feeling connected to the larger mission of the company. And that's one of the things that I see with a lot of the companies that I work with. Like when I first go in, I'm like, what's your mission? What's your vision? And if you can state that, do people know it? Right. So I think people want to, especially in the age of COVID, like we all want to be connected to something larger, right? So that we're not feeling alone. And listen, we won't know the effects for years of, just how COVID has in the isolation. We're communal beings. We're meant to be working together and together. So I think that that's really important too, is to make sure that in this age, right, that we are providing an environment where people can feel connected, whether it's Zoom or whatever else, but if we can't be in the same room, that I think the companies that are thriving have really done a good job of sort of adapting to that virtual workplace, right? But having those connectors and allowing people to interact with one another so that they don't feel isolated.
But going forward, as God willing, this pandemic is, we'll say, turning into an endemic where we just kind of have to live with it, like we're still living with the Spanish flu 100 years later, right?
Mhm.
What do you think is going to happen to the workplace? Do you think do you think it's been kind of shattered once and for all, and it's going to be like kind of a hybrid version of work with remote and in person? You think we're going to go back to in person? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think that COVID is exacerbating or, speeding up trends that were already happening. And I think that, we live in a world where if you have your phone and your computer, you literally can be anywhere in the world and work for certain professions, right? So I'm not the authority on this, obviously, but my opinion is that I do think that it will be a hybrid. I think that this is a trend. I don't think it's just, COVID related. And I think people have also found that, there's having that flexibility to be able to integrate your life and your business together and is not necessarily a bad thing. And the other thing I think it's, in talking about connection with people, it's like, you know, this age of Zoom calls where you're not able to carefully curate your business life, right? You've got kids bombing, and dogs and cats and
Hmm.
whatever, and people are more harried, but like we're human, we're messy people, right? So I don't think we're meant to just have this curated, like, this is my office life, this is my work, this is my home life. Like, I do think that we're moving towards an age of where we're just having a more integrated life and we're accepting each other more and we're not putting on personas, right? We all get really real during this. And I personally think that that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I got out of college, I would listen to who I think are the greats, Brian Tracy, Tony Robbins, et cetera. But one of my Og Mandino, Zig Ziglar, people like that. But one of my favorites was Jim Rohn, and he's
Yeah.
passed away. But Jim Rohn had a great
Yeah.
saying, like, wherever you are, be there. And then he would expand on that saying, when you're at work, be at work, be focused on work. Don't think about home. Don't talk to home a lot. Just be at work and do your best. When you're at home, be at home, focus on home. Don't think
Right.
about work, be there for your family, etc. And then, when you're on vacation, be on vacation, just like, don't think about work. Don't think about, like, your geographical home, just like be on vacation, whether you're with family or friends, and enjoy it. And so wherever you are, be there. That was a great saying of his. Now, in today's world, that is like, I mean, we've taken the mixing bowl of, vacation, home, and work, and just like made one big cake, right? And so going forward, I do. There are certainly are some opportunities with that, but there are some challenges with that too, right?
Yes, I absolutely think that that's the case. And it's funny because my husband has been working remotely probably since 2010. We would go and we would take a month and sort of go somewhere for the month of August. And but it's funny because he would say, I feel like I'm cheating life because I'm looking at this beautiful view and doing what I love, but I'm working. So, but what I think you do have to be careful, right? But I also do think that it allows people, not everybody is a morning person. Some people work best in the evenings, like their circadian rhythms are later. Like some people do their best work in the morning. I'm a morning person. At 10 o'clock, I'm passing out. Like I'm not going to be up till 1 o'clock in the morning doing a project. So I think it allows you to work the way that you're supposed to work, right? It's like our education system. It's not to go down this path, but it's a one size fits all. I think we're getting away from that, and we're going to have a lot more individualized, ways that we work and ways that we do things. And I think that's good. The challenge is, yes, obviously, I think you've got to know about you and your wife, but in the beginning of COVID, I said to my husband, I'm like, you're my only person. Like we need to have dedicated time. So at the end of the day, it was like we would call our workday at 6 o'clock. And no matter what, and meet downstairs and, listen to a podcast or have a glass of wine or talk about our day so that there was a dedicated time for connection. So it just didn't just bleed into the night. And I think that was important. So I think setting parameters, and having discipline about it. But for me personally, I'm absolutely loving it.
Yeah. Well, you guys had some practice, so that's fantastic. So I'm curious, so when an entrepreneur, innovator, business owner, comes to you and they're needing your services, like where are they? What are their challenges? And then, how are you helping them to, get on track with where they need to be?
Yeah. And so I work with, as you mentioned before, more small to mid-sized companies, maybe in business, if they're startups, 3 to 5 years with a certain level in sales. So they've got the proof of concept. And I find my particular type of entrepreneur that I work well with is not somebody that hasn't necessarily, they may have been a creative, right? And they didn't necessarily have the business skills and they got to where they are. And then they're like, well, I think there might be something more, but I don't know how to get there. So when I meet them, it's like, I meet them where they are. So where are they in their business? Usually people come to me, because they have a challenge, they're stuck. So my job is to find out where they are now, where they're stuck, and then how do we get them where they want to go? And a lot of times, listen, this is something they could probably do for themselves, but it's not easy to be objective when it's your own business. So I give an objective, sort of viewpoint of it. And I'll ask them, where are you? Do you have a business plan? What are your, goals for the next 3 to 5 years? What's your vision? What's your mission? And once we go through all of those things, and you'd be surprised, most people that I come across don't necessarily they don't have a plan. So you wouldn't get in your car and just start driving, right? If you wanted to go from New York to California, you'd put your GPS, you'd plan out the hotel stops, you're not going to drive straight through 3,000 miles. It's kind of the same thing with business. It's like, you can't just keep going, right? Eventually you just run out of road because like you've got to define, where do you want to take this thing? And then as a leader, right, it's like you're leading people. So you've got to be the evangelist for your vision. So, and that's another thing I think the research shows like less than 35% of people even really know what the company's mission or vision is. And then even less know how they connect to it. So it sounds, simplistic in a lot of ways, but it's really not. And doing it and having it, effective, having a an action plan that, and defining, there's a great book, I think it's called Measure What Matters by John Doerr, who was a venture capitalist. I'm just re-listening to it again. And it's really like, and it's called OKRs, it's objectives and key results. So you can't have more than, Bob Iger says the same thing. It's like, if you have more than 3 or 4 strategic objectives, you have none, because you can't focus on that many. So helping them define what's crucially important, what's going to move the needle, what's going to get them, to that company that has real enterprise value, and designing with the end in mind. If you want to have a company that you want to sell, there are certain things that you need to do to get there that they don't necessarily know how to do. So that's where I come in and I help them, where do you want to go? Where are you now? And then how are we going to get there? What are the objectives? And what are the key results that we're measuring? They are not measuring the right things. Maybe they're measuring, revenue and profitability, but you have to also look at the top of the funnel as well. So do you have the marketing? Do you have the top of the funnel working so that you're going to achieve your key results? So helping them really look at their business in an objective way, coming up with a strategic plan, helping them align their teams. And the difference, I think, for me is I've lived it. I've been in their shoes. So I'm not like a consultant who's like sitting there and telling you what to do. I've actually done it. So I have the proven methodology and I have the experience to help them get from point A to point B. And I help them. I hold their, I won't say hold their hands, but like I'm helping on the execution because I've done execution. So that's kind of my methodology and how I help. And I really do love working with, leaders who are conscious and really care about doing something greater than just, making a profit at the end of the year. It's like there's a bigger business. They have, a bigger mission to fulfill with their company.
I love it, Gina. If you have a microphone, I think you should drop it. That was super, super fantastic. And I'm telling you, I've known Gina for a few months now. Oh, and by the way, we got to call out Heath Barnes for introducing us. Thank you, Heath. He's introduced me to so many great people. Yeah. And in my new networking community, Utopia, you and Heath were among the first to join it. So excited to kick that off with you guys. You guys are founding members. And you're making me think about my mission for Utopia. And as you're talking, I'm trying to, I know it in my head and I feel it in my heart, but I it's going to be something like, getting, heart-centered entrepreneurs together to grow, learn, and connect, something of that nature. Because that's where I want to go with this. I want it to be like, Woodstock meets business. We're all loving on each other, but you know what? At the same time, let's make some money together, make some impact. So you got me thinking about it. So thank you for that.
Good. Yeah, no, and I'm super excited to be a part of that. And one of the other things I live by, my mantra is like, above all else, life should be fun. Like we should be having some fun. And it shouldn't just be all buttoned up business, right? So I'm excited to be working with people like you and Heath and Natalia, who you introduced me to. And I really highly recommend to anybody to join this network with us and let's create some real change. The
Untethered Entrepreneur. So Gina, if people want to get a hold of you, learn more about you, where do they go?
Sure. It's the GinaPGroup.com is my website, at Gina P Group on Instagram. And also the untetheredentrepreneur.com. And there's a Facebook group for the Untethered Entrepreneur group, a private Facebook group, but would love people to join in on that and comment and be a part of that. I know you were part of that.
I'm in it.
Working together. Yep. So yeah, just to continue to do that. So that's where you can find me.
Awesome, Gina. Thank you so much. Totally appreciate you sharing your heartbeats with me today, with us today. And I wish you continued massive success and enjoy the warm weather.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I want to thank you, Gazzo family, for listening today. Join us every Wednesday for a new episode. Really appreciate you spending some time with us today. Make sure to stay awesome.